A very good morning to one and all. Once again, welcome to Geography class. This is the third class for the chapter number 2nd, Forest and Wildlife Resource. Chapter number 2, Forest and Wildlife Resources. Earlier we had seen the two topics. In the two topics we had talked and discussed about the flora and fauna in India, biodiversity, the huge classification of different species. After that we had talked about the conservation method the people are doing. After that we had seen about the different types of forest, how it is going to be categorized, and today in this topic we are going to see the community and conservation, and finally lastly we will solve the exercise of this chapter. So dear cadet, once again we are moving into the flashback to see the following points. Forest and wildlife resources. In this chapter we had taken the tour of the important and the key role of forest as well as the wildlife. We had seen all the plants and animals, how they are playing a very significant role in our day-to-day life. Next, moving further to see about the basic points from this chapter. Point number 1, community and conservation. In this topic we are going to see about the community and conservation. How the community is doing some good things for the conservation of flora and fauna. Moving further, at the last we are going to do the exercise of this chapter. Point number 1, community and conservation. Conservation strategies are not new in our country. That means they are not new. Already in our previous classes I told you about the different conservation measures. In that we were talking and discussing about the Project Tiger, number of the national park the government has set up for the conservation, preservation and for the protection of forest and wildlife resources. Next, we often ignore that in India forests are also home to some of the traditional communities. In some area of India, local communities are struggling to conserve these habitats along with government officials, recognizing that only this will secure their own long-term livelihood. They are thinking about that. These people, they are only residing in that forest and protecting them and resisting not to clear the project or not to have a other development program in that particular forest area. Because the aim is that the peoples living in that, they are using that all the forest product for their livelihood. So like that, in Sariska Tiger Reserve, Rajasthan, villagers have fought against mining by citing the Village Wildlife Protection Act. So here clearly stating about how the village people, the community peoples are struggling and fighting for their cause. Next, moving. Right. In many areas, villagers themselves are protecting habitats and explicitly rejecting the government involvement. The inhabitants of 5 villages in the Alwar district of Rajasthan have declared 1,200 hectares of forest as the Bhairavdev Dhakav Sanctuary or Sanctuary, declaring their own set of rules and regulations which do not allow hunting and protecting the wildlife against any outside encroachment. So dear cadet, all these slides are talking about the importance and significance of wildlife and what are the safety measures the community is doing to conserve and preserve them. Moving ahead, we are going to see about the community participation. Just you have seen the example, two examples from Rajasthan. The famous Chipko movement. Point to be noted here, please have a tick mark or underline Chipko movement in your textbook. The famous Chipko movement in the Himalayas has not only the successfully resisted deforestation in several areas, but has also shown that the community afforestation with the indigenous species can be enormously successful. This is talking about how the people are worried related to conserve the flora and fauna. Chipko movement is only talking about the particular feelings toward the trees. The number of the people, they stick to the trees and they were not allowing the people to cut them. Attempts to revive the traditional conservation method or developing new methods of ecological farming are now widespread. So dear cadet, the number of the traditional as well as the conservation method or developing new methods of ecological farming are now widespread and peoples are adopting them. In that the farmers and the citizens groups like the Beach Bachao Andolan in Tehri and Navdhanya have shown that the educate level of diversified crop production without the use of synthetic chemical are possible and economical viable. Nowadays you are knowing about the organic farming and organic food products, right? So all the food grains which are organic in nature, people are loving and they are using them in a huge amount because they don't want the chemical one. Next, moving further to see more. In the joint forest management, please underline this topic. This is very important as an part and parcel of the examination. In the examination, there can be 3 marks question stating that explain any 3 features of joint forest management. In India, joint forest management program furnish a good example of involving local communities in the management and restoration of the degraded forest. The program has been in formal existence since 1988. Please make a note of the date. When the state of Orissa passed the first resolution for the joint forest management, JFM depends on the formation of the local village or institution that undertake protection activity, mostly on degraded forest, land managed by the forest department. In the return, the members of the communities are entitled to intermediary benefits like non-timber forest product and share in the timber harvest by successful protection. So this slide is representing about the act of the conservation by the community and how the government is also involving hand to hand so that for the protection of the forest can be in a good way. Next, the clear lesson from the dynamic of the both environmental destruction and reconstruction in India is that the local community everywhere, that means, have to be involved in some kind of natural resources management, but there is still a long way to go before the local communities are to the center stage in decision making, except only those economic and development activities that are public centric, environmental friendly and economically rewarding So dear cadet, here we have concluded this chapter. In this chapter we had seen about all the points which are related to the flora and fauna. Once again I am quickly giving you the generalization of this chapter. After that we are going to discuss the question answers from this chapter. This chapter, Forest and Wildlife Resources, was talking about first the biodiversity, the very richness of the flora and fauna present in India. After that we had seen the vanishing forest and the people's attention and the government attention through the campaign and so all to preserve and conserve the forest. After that we had seen the IUCN, the conservation of nature and natural resources. We have classified the species. In that we had talked and discussed about normal species, endangered species, vulnerable species, rare species, endemic and extinction species. Next, moving further, we had concluded the point with that from the colonial period to up to now, there was a degradation in the forest. Then the conservation of the forest and wildlife, why it is important and what are the different steps the government has taken. In that a very good point we had seen about the Project Tiger. That was the conservation products. Next, moving further, we had classified the forest, the types and the distribution of the forest as well as the wildlife. In that we had seen the reserve forest, protected forest and unclassed forest. And today in this class we had seen about the community and the conservation program. How the community is coming ahead, taking a step toward the conservation of flora and fauna. Now moving further to talk and discuss about the question answers of this chapter. First, the question number 1 is speaking multiple choice question. Dear cadet, please make a note of it. Here the one statement is given the question and 4 options are there. Which of the following statement is not valid reason for the depletion of flora and fauna? Point number 1. This topic is stating about the point that which of the following statement is not a valid reason. So out of this, which is not a valid one? Due to agriculture expansion, the depletion of the flora and fauna is going to be there. Sure. B, large scale development project. By that also we are going to have the depletion of the flora and fauna. Grazing and the fuel wood collection. So C, we are keeping like that only. We are moving to D, rapid industrialization and urbanization. So the point C is the correct answer. I repeat once again. Which of these statements is not a valid reason? It's not a valid reason. So here C is the correct answer here. Because grazing is not going to destroy or deplete the whole flora and fauna, and collection of the fuel wood collection. Okay. Next, question number 2. Which of the following conservation strategy do not directly involve community participation? So just now we have read about the community participation. In the community participation, already we had seen about the joint forest management, Beach Bachao Andolan, Chipko movement, and the last is demarcation of the wildlife sanctuary. So the D is the correct answer. Moving further to see, then match the following and the other questions of this chapter. D is the correct answer. Please take it. Match the following animals with their category of existence. So point here, we are going to talk and discuss about the flora and fauna. Already in our classes, I talked about that what you have to do. You have to make a table. That table is going to talk and discuss about the different types of species and the animals which are present there. First, black bug. So when we are going to see about black bug, it's an endangered species. Then Asiatic elephant, it's vulnerable. Then Andaman wild pig, it's endemic. Then Himalayan brown bear, it's extinct species. Then pink-headed duck, it's rare species. So please, from the textbook, once again match it. So you are going to understand about that, which species is there and why. Once again I will repeat for you. The pink-head duck. Please see it carefully. Pink-head duck, extinct species. Himalaya brown bear, it's a rare species. Andaman wild pig, endemic species. The next, Asiatic elephant, vulnerable species. The next, black bug, endangered species. Moving to the next, match the following. Here, match the following: reserve forest, protected forest and unclassed forest. So here we are going to talk and discuss about how already we had seen unclassed forest means to be the forest and the wasteland belong to the government and the private individual community. So unclassed forest, the answer is this one, right? The next, here reserve forest, regarded as most valuable as far as the conservation of the forest and wildlife resource. Last, the protected forest, forest lands are protected from any further depletion. Next, once again I will repeat, reserve forest, this answer is there, the arrow which I am making from here to here. Just I am waiting for the highlighter. Just this reserve forest, from this is the correct answer. Protected forest, this is the correct answer. And unclassed forest, this is the correct answer. Clear? Now next, moving further quickly to see the question, and I will just discuss or highlight the basic answer of this question. Question number 4. Answer the following question in about 30 words. First, what is biodiversity and why is biodiversity important for human lives? First question is talking about the definition of biodiversity. You have to state the definition of biodiversity. And why is biodiversity is important for human life? You have to state the advantage or merits of biodiversity. Next, how have human activities affected the depletion of flora and fauna? Explain. In this question, you have to explain all the human activities which are leading to be flora and fauna in degraded situation. That means the forest and wildlife are going to be affected very badly by the human activity, just like deforestation, hunting, poaching and so on. Next, question number 5. Answer the following question in about 120 words. Question number 1. Describe how the community have conserved and protected the forest and wildlife in India. So just now we had read in this presentation about the communities, what they are doing to conserve the forest and wildlife, just like Chipko movement, Navdham is there, Beach Bachao is there, joint forest management is there, and many more related to Rajasthan and all. Last, write a note on good practice toward conserving forest and wildlife. So you have to write about the good practice which is involved in conserving and the forest and wildlife. Lastly, I want to thank to each and everyone for watching this video. Till then, be safe and secure at your home. Jai Hind to one and all.